Welcome to the field. My name is JJ. Round 5 of the AFL season is in the books, and what a beauty, what an absolute cracker she was indeed. It was a magnificent Saturday, a super Saturday of footy, and it was 3-2-1, not for the Brownlow votes, 3-2-1. It was 3-2-1 in terms of the margin of victory. The Power got the job done against Fremantle by 3 points and made it a horror 7 days in Adelaide for the Dockers. The Crows, the Monkeys off the back. The Crows are back in town. They got a 2-point win over the Blues at Marvel Stadium. Also breaking that big-time hoodoo of beating good teams, top 8 teams, top 4 teams on the road under Matthew Nicks. Their season is underway. And the Giants, still unbeaten, but only just. They stopped and prevented a late rally from the Saints, who were charging, kicked the last 6 goals of the game, did St Kilda, but fell short by 1 point. So it was 3 points to the Power, 2 points to the Crows, and 1 point to the Giants on Saturday. The Gold Coast also took care of the Hawks, but 3-2-1, unbelievable Saturday of footy. And it was started by Thursday night. We saw a big upset on both Thursday and Friday night. The Lions are back in town. They came down to Melbourne and accounted for Melbourne, who had been high-flying before that. And then, of course, Friday night, the Dons, the Essendon Edge, quote-unquote, is back. And the Bulldogs, what do we do with the Bulldogs? Seriously, that was a terrible second half from the Bulldogs. And then Sunday, not necessarily showtime footy or showcase footy, Geelong hammered the Kangaroos, but I want to talk about a key Roo who can help progress and propel them forward into the future. And then the Eagles, the West Coast Eagles, the mighty Weagles got the job done. They got win number 1 for 2024 on the board, thanks largely to Jake Waterman. But Elliot Yeo, how good was he? Harley Reid continues to get better and better as well. So the Eagles are on the board for 2024, getting a win over the injury-stricken Tigers in Perth. But 3 things, as always, I want to get stuck into. The first of 3 is the newest version of Charlie C. More on that in a moment. I want to talk about the technique issues plaguing MRO decisions and tribunal cases. I've talked about that in depth on the weekly 7 AFL social video that I've put out as well. And also, I want to know from you, probably as much as anyone, who is the number 1 seed after a handful of weeks of the AFL season. The Giants are unbeaten, but their past 2 weeks have been less than convincing. They've got injury issues now. The Cats are unbeaten, but their strength of schedule, an American term, is not strong at all. They go up north to face Brisbane this week. Talk about the Lions. Are they back in town? Where do the Swans fit coming off the bye? The reigning Premier are there or thereabouts. There's a heap of teams in the mix. The Ds, there's heaps of teams in that big mix of teams who can probably lay claim to being one of the best 1 or 2 teams in the competition. But first, I want to talk about, off the top, Charlie C. Not the electric small forward in Brisbane, Charlie Cameron, and not the back-to-back reigning Coleman medalist, Charlie Curnow. There's another Charlie C, and he has yet to reach the dizzying heights of the top 2. The 2 I just mentioned, Cameron and Curnow, but he's a young kangaroo who can go places. And his name's Charlie Comben. I watched him live on Sunday. He played down back against the Cats. Now, look, he's got a tough job, as all the defenders do for the Kangaroos. But Charlie Comben's a 200-centimetre plus, incredibly athletic, fearless in the air key defender who I remember ringing a good mate of mine, Tommy Lynch, former teammate of mine, who's the VFL head coach at the Kangaroos. And I'm thinking, where is this guy? Put him in up front beside Nick Larkey. He can be your forward ruck. He's 200 centimetres. He can mark the footy. He can go and chop out in the ruck. I said, where is he? He said, just be patient. Good things come to those who wait. And we've had to wait for him. And he's playing at the other end of the ground. But funnily enough, the coaches know more than us who sit in the cheap seats. And he has been excellent in his first 2 games as a key defender. Now, albeit they've been hammered. So 145 points have been the combined losses in the 2 games that he's participated in. And not only that, 72 inside 50s in those games. Sorry, 132 inside 50s in those 2 games. 70 plus against the Lions and another 60 plus on the weekend against the Cats. So he's getting endless opportunities to take intercept marks, to be involved in the play. Similar in a sense to Jacob Weitering. So when Jacob Weitering was a young player, and I think I've heard him speak about this himself, Carlton were poor. They were having so many entries against, so many scores against, but he was just getting opportunity after opportunity to learn how to defend, to learn where he could stand, where he couldn't stand. When the ball was moving fast, how do I defend? What should I do? Do I look for body? Do I not? So many times, even though the ball's coming in and you're getting scores kicked against, as Charlie Comben and the Kangaroos are, those guys are getting opportunities. They're getting reps, as they say, to learn the caper and learn their craft and learn how to get better. So his 2 games have been really good. His game on the weekend, 14 disposals, but he had 6 intercept possessions, took 9 marks, 3 contested marks, and he looks like he can kick the ball okay as well. So I like the way his technique from a kicking perspective looks really solid as well for a 200-centimetre key defender. But his debut this season against the Lions, he had 25 disposals, 13 intercept possessions. He took a handful more contested marks. He had 8 rebound 50s. I love the game that he played against a couple of really good forwards in Hipwood and Danaher. So he is a player for the future. He's a lovely athlete. As I said, he's a neat kick who I think will just continue to get better and better in that space. And he can certainly, maybe more than, fill the void left by Ben Mackay, who departed the club in free agency. So he's one to look for. The midfield looks okay. Davies Uniacke, you've got Wardlaw, Sheasel off halfback. The midfield group starts to look pretty good. You've got Larkey up front. Now maybe you've got Charlie Comben down back. He's not Charlie Curnow. He's not Charlie Cameron. He is Charlie Comben. And if you're a Roos fan, it's probably time to get excited about him. Now, on the socials this week, the 7 AFL socials, make sure you check it out on Instagram and Twitter. I don't think Channel 7 are doing the TikTok thing just yet, but I go step by step and almost frame by frame inside the Tom Liberatore and Todd Goldstein incident where Libba gave away the free kick and the 50 for dissent. I'm not worried about the dissent. I'm more worried about the contest because there were 2 other contests of very, very similar nature in round 5. Matt Crouch was suspended for a week for his bump on Jack Carroll, and Port Adelaide superstar Zach Butters escaped MRO sanction for his contest collision with Bailey Banfield of Fremantle. Now, I really go and have a look step by step. We talk about the technique, but I urge you to go and have a look at that. But for those who may have missed it or don't have time or just don't intend to go and have a look at it, a player, when picking up a ground ball, is taught. Now, I was taught this perhaps even before AFL footy when I was playing AFL. It's taught to approach a contest, a 50-50 ball, a ball in dispute on the ground, to approach the ball with 3 things in mind. So to get low as to be strong, have a nice, strong center of gravity, a nice low base, to turn side on to protect yourself, but also to protect the person who's incoming, and to get your foot past the ball. So when you do ground ball practice by yourself and you've got the ball rolling away from you, you're taught to not pick the ball up until you get your foot past the ball. That, again, is so you can be low, you can be strong, and you can be ready to explode away from that ground ball situation. Now, Liberatore, Crouch, and Butters all do that. If you freeze the camera or freeze the video when those 3 guys are about to put hands on the footy, their footies past the ball or in line with the ball, they're low, and they're side on. The problem, in my opinion, and this shouldn't be controversial, but maybe it is, the problem, in my opinion, is Banfield, Carroll, and Goldstein all go at these contests with poor technique. They all reach. They all put their head in a vulnerable position, and that's the other thing that the Crouch, Libba, and Butters don't do. Their head's in a protected position. Banfield's head is just nowhere. He's dangling it out there as he's reaching for the footy. Goldstein leads almost with his head and his hands reaching, and Carroll similar. So if those guys approach the contest, think about Banfield And think about Carroll and think about Goldstein approaching that contest in the same technique that the other guy does. So they go side on, they get their foot past the ball, or they attempt to, and they get low. Those contests and those two players involved in those contests, they hit side on. They both hit each other with their hip and their shoulder and their side. And we never think about or talk about those three contests ever again. Now, at the moment, one's been suspended, one was looked at by the MRO and got off, and one gave away a free kick, and that's it. In my opinion, all three approached the contest in the correct manner. Now, you can argue perhaps that Crouch attacks that contest with a little bit too much vigor. Now, we're taught to approach a contest with vigor and with force and with aggression. So that's, I guess, an aside. But those guys are approaching those contests with the correct technique, what they're being taught. So either the coaches need to teach something different, or the players who are getting collected need to implement that technique so that both players collide, bang, and they both move on, and we never talk about those contests ever again. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know. Leave a comment in the comments section on the YouTube page, or even let me know on the socials. It's a fascinating scenario. We saw it 3 times in the same weekend. I've seen it heaps of times over the past couple of years. Certainly, technique is so important when it comes to these scenarios. Now, finally, who is the Premiership favourite? Now, I know what the bookies say. The bookies tell us that GWS and Sydney are 1 and 2, followed by Brisbane. So it's an interstate 1, 2, 3. Surprised Brisbane are still ranked so highly by the bookies. Carlton are there, then Melbourne, then Port Adelaide, then Collingwood, and then Geelong. So there's your top 7 or 8. Then there's a bit of a gap, or a large gap, back to Fremantle, St Kilda, and the Dogs. And then I haven't even mentioned teams like Adelaide who are in the mix, and maybe even the Suns who might be in the mix and who are certainly improving. So who is the Premiership favourite? Who's the number 1 seed? Who's the top dog? As the ladder tells us, the Giants are number 1 with the way they've been going about it. So they've fallen in against the Saints. They eventually ran away from a really, really valiant Gold Coast Suns in gather round. They hammered the Pies, but the Pies have got better since. They've got their stars playing good footy, but they've got some lesser lights who are standing up as well. Guys like Ash and Callahan and Brown and Iden and Perryman, O'Halloran. They've got a heap of guys in that space who are playing good footy. But now we'll get a look at them without their superstar defender, Sam Taylor. Can Jack Buckley stand up? Can the Blues forwards, the big 2 of Mackay and Curnow, get on top of the Giants minus Sam Taylor? We find out. Then we've got Geelong, the only other remaining unbeaten. They've got stars as well. You talk about Hawkins and Cameron up front. You talk about Dangerfield resuming off a little hamstring. Tommy Stewart, who's absolutely roaming and doing whatever he wants. And the emerging Max Holmes, who I must admit I was slowish to the party too. And I've had more access to him than most. But he is emerging. And that $1 million contract offer either has already arrived or will be soon to arrive from opposition teams. He is certainly one to watch. Their draw, though, the Cats, has been pretty kind. I think they'll get an acid test in Brisbane this weekend. And if they go up there and roll the Lions, we have to be taking the Cats as serious premiership threats. And that's without mentioning the D's, who some say are the best team in footy, the most stable team in footy with their contest and their defence. We've got the Blues, who were my preseason pick to make a grand final. The Power, are they and can they be the real deal this season? Can they make it count when it really counts? The Swans, I think their form's dipped. They get the bye at the right time. Can they catapult off the back of that? Are the Lions truly alive, or are they just making a little rally, and can they win it from outside the top 4, or even finishing 3rd and 4th and having to travel for that first final and then probably a prelim final? How do we feel about the Gold Coast? I feel good about them. Maybe not in 24, maybe in 26, but they are starting to look like the real deal. And what about Essendon? Can they win a final? Maybe that's their priority. But what I'm telling you and what I'm trying to explain and stretch out is that this competition is wide open. It might tell you that the Giants are on top. and they're the favourite with the bookies. But I'm telling you now, so much is going to happen between now and then. So many teams are going to need good health, good luck, good fortune, good skill, all of the above to try and get it done. And we know finishing top two, particularly for the interstate teams, is crucial if you want to make a grand final. So let me know who's the top dog, who's the number one seed. Leave a comment and make sure you are subscribed to the show. It's been good fun sitting down each and every Monday, reviewing a little bit of last week, having a look forward to this week and trying to break down some of the big issues in the footy. Keep watching, keep engaging, and keep enjoying the footy. My name's JJ. We'll be back again next week.